Minecraft Story Mode. Deceptively not an actual mode within the Minecraft game, instead a game in its own right, not created by Mojang but Telltale Games. If you're familiar with Telltale, that actually makes it more of a choose-your-own-adventure TV show with 8 episodes in Season 1 and 5 episodes in Season 2, which is its own separate game release. You get all that?
Chicken jockey!
Let's scale back for a second. Minecraft is the best-selling video game of all time, selling over 300 million copies and beloved for its revolutionary freedom to do all the building and adventuring you could ever want in a vast, near infinite 3D world. We made a big Lachie cola. So with this kind of popularity in a game this open, a lot of people end up telling their own stories within Minecraft. Our world had a devastating war wreak havoc on the server for weeks. So here's an official, high-quality, interactive Minecraft story where you can make your own decisions within the story's confines, featuring a quality budget, dedicated writers, and a stacked cast, such as Patton Oswalt and Ashley Johnson, soon to reunite in the fucking Among Us TV show, the Overwatch hamster, the guy who does all the animal noises, and fucking Pee Wee Herman, Paul Rubens. But this game wasn't made by Minecraft's developers, Mojang. The license actually went to Telltale Games. The adventure game, characterized by role-playing in an interactive story usually centered around exploration and puzzle solving. Founded notably in 1982 by creator of Star Wars, George Lucas, LucasArts, or Lucasfilm Games as they're currently known, were pioneers of the adventure game in the 1990s, known for various projects like the Monkey Island, Sam & Max, and Indiana Jones games. Eventually, however, as popularity of the adventure game waned, and LucasArts' ambitions lay with Star Wars games, Kevin Bruner, Dan Connors, and Troy Melander would leave LucasArts to found Telltale Games, continuing to pursue their own personal visions and ambitions for the adventure game, seeing so many more places it could go. Continuing their work for a while, even revisiting past IPs, Telltale was never quite stable, but they were slowly pushing. The Walking Dead video game, yes that's how you say it, was finally their breakout hit, refining and revolutionizing their own unique style of adventure game with action gameplay and limited time choices. The game was a massive success, nominated and winning countless prestigious awards, but it would also cement their downfall. Telltale strayed from their original goal of ambitious new adventure games, now focusing on pursuing greater and greater license acquisitions, soon expanding from 125 employees in 2013 to over 400 in its peak in 2017. During this expansion, co-founder Kevin Bruner ascended to CEO and was reportedly, by ex-Telltale employees, micromanaging horrendous crunch culture as they strive to make as many games as possible for high-profile IPs, exactly like The Walking Dead. That came with a constant stream of content with scheduled episodic releases, employees being cycled through multiple projects at a time, working constant overtime, pressure to make content exactly to Kevin's liking, characters and stories that suited his tastes. No one could take time off or it would screw over the other employees, fighting to make last-minute changes at the demand of countless managers they were answering to for all their IP acquisitions. It was a dark era of steadily declining quality in pursuit of quantity, in pursuit of greater funding to sustain their diminishing returns. Bruner persisted with the use of the Telltale tool, their increasingly outdated game development engine that lacked a physics engine, where complicated action scenes took far longer to put together painstakingly by hand. Dynamic lighting was lacking in the dated engine, bugs continually arose, graphics began to stall behind the competition, and so the quality control department, like almost everyone else, were working 40 to 60 hour weeks to test issues across multiple platforms. Yet Bruner stuck by it as it was too hard to transition away in the chaos of so many promised games. That, and because he thought it would give a good baseline feel for the games, a Telltale style, like how you can't have a public bathroom without shit smeared on the wall. Likely, and this is speculation on my part, this was still just trying to continually replicate The Walking Dead. And it was during this era where Telltale acquired countless IPs they rushed out games for continuously, where today's story lies, behind overworked, hard-working employees who really did care. These licenses included Borderlands, Game of Thrones, Batman, Guardians of the Galaxy, but most importantly, Minecraft. Minecraft Story Mode has not the best reputation online. It's considered to have bad writing, unmemorable characters, and makes a messy, nonsensical story out of nothing. Just a bunch of slop, but I want to change that narrative. I want to analyze what good it does, what worth it has, what valuable experience it has that's worth preserving. It's not beyond criticism, honestly far from it.
I've heard all about the F-bomb before.
But this game isn't made without a lot of love that's also worth appreciating. Story mode's gameplay follows the usual Telltale formula, which in and of itself is actually interesting in the case of this game, as it targets a wider, family-friendly audience in a Minecraft package. Kids got to experience that Telltale style of customizable stories for the first time. It was brand new for me at the time, even if sometimes those interactions, like in most Telltale games, were not what I chose to say at all.
Yeah, good point. Let's sit here and sing songs instead. First song is called How We Gave Up at the Finish Line.
What the fuck are you talking about?
Story mode's gameplay is fully story-driven, where you interact with it and its characters for limited time choices, with the odd action, free roam, or crafting sequence to get through, these even with their own decisions within them. What statue do you build at the building competition? What weapon do you make, affecting how you attack mobs? Who do you choose to save in a desperate moment, the consequences of which will keep one of them around but with Minecraft wither cancer, and the other trapped in a hellish frozen barely conscious state within the wither storm that will eventually escape with amnesia? Yeah, this game was not originally meant to be too family friendly, with the darker remnants of the earlier version clearly still remaining in some parts.
Oh my god, it's a fucking creeper.
Telltale, however, felt excited to return to their more innocent roots. But what is the game's story actually about then? I figure I should give a brief summary before we get into the deeper analysis, just so we know what we're dealing with in the bigger picture. The plot isn't anything like they fight the Ender Dragon and win, or the evil piglin from the Nether are invading. They tell a story within Minecraft, which has always been a massive part of the community itself, so I love that they have fun with that and do a lot of meta stuff about the game. Friendships, exploring, crazy builds, adventure, pushing the bounds of the game, of what's even considered Minecraft at times, exploring every facet of it. They subvert that Ender Dragon story immediately, Minecraft's own end goal in a sense, the final boss of the game, because a lot of people don't even really do it. The game has so much to offer in its freedom that the final boss is barely even relevant. In our introduction, it's been killed by a group of adventurers called the Order of the Stone, a legend now faded into the realm of perhaps untrustworthy myth, consisting of Gabriel the Warrior, Elagard the Redstone Engineer, what the fuck are these moving? Magnus the Rogue, or more appropriately Griefer, and Soren the Architect. Now in present day we meet our protagonist Jesse, their pet pig Reuben, his two dorky best friends Axel and Olivia, the mysterious mercenary Petra, and the rival gang leader Lucas. Jesse actually has two full voice actors for the male and female options, so I'll be using male pronouns here because that's what I picked. During EnderCon, some vague-ass convention, a conflict between Gabriel and the forgotten fifth member of the Order of the Stone, Ivor the Alchemist, breaks out during Gabriel's keynote. Ivor then unleashes an eldritch horror called the Wither Storm, an original mutation on the Wither with a command block at its center that pulls in blocks and people all around it. With the world being torn apart, our crew must venture out across the lands to reassemble the Order of the Stone to defeat the horrifying beast. As they venture out looking to re-establish the Order of the Stone and defeat the Wither Storm, we bring them all together but blow it up ourselves, as the Order are surprisingly unwilling or incapable of doing it themselves. However, this separates it into three separate storms now. Eventually, as we enlist the help of Ivor to finally dismantle this thing, it's revealed that the myths of the Order had distorted further than first thought. There were actually a bunch of frauds that abused the command block to do all their legendary adventuring, and so when push comes to shove, they all fall apart, and it's up to Jesse and crew to learn from their adventures and the Order's shortcomings to step up themselves to defeat the Wither Storm. On that note, what an amazing concept for a villain, a genuine otherworldly beast to Minecraft, taking the Wither and merging it with the command block's fourth wall-breaking hacks and commands, a distortion of its reality. It's a really creative expansion of things already in the game, like so many other things throughout the adventure. They adventure through Boomtown, a chaotic Griefer hellscape like 2B2T, the oldest anarchy server in Minecraft, and Redstonia with redstone showcases all over the place. Oh, I just killed someone. They go inside an overly complicated giant mob grinder, an Enderman research facility in the end, and even the Farlands, the old world border glitch millions of blocks out, where the generation would get all fucked up and create these weird glitchy walls. What a fun concept for a Minecraft story game. The sheer ambition this game has is one of my favorite parts about it. There's a lot of whimsy to get lost in, even if the story and cheesy ass writing falter at times.
They have a freaking beacon? Freaking beacon?
There are constant inclusions of niche Minecraft builds, like a rainbow beacon and the Nether highway, because one block in the Nether dimension is 8 blocks in the overworld. It doesn't just build a story in Minecraft, it basically creates the ultimate Minecraft fantasy that could never be experienced this dramatically in the regular game. What I'm getting at is that it has a reason to exist, a reason it was made, standing completely complementary to its counterpart. But I've praised the game way too much lately, so with the plot summary out of the way, we got a deep dive into the story and character analysis, and unfortunately it doesn't start the best with the introductory scenes for our future heroes. Episode 1 wastes a ton of time when it really didn't have to, with the whole introduction for our characters being extremely generic. You play around with dialogue trees for the first time, test out quick time events in a training montage, and make decisions from the get-go. I chose to make the zombie from the Lachie collar statue. Whoa, that is a fucked up zombie! Anyway, our core trio plus Ruben are established as losers because the game tells us so with a generic bully character, Aiden, that I found it funnier not to interact with and let him yell at a brick wall.
Endercon doesn't allow outside food or drink.
I'm talking about your pig.
I'm saying he's food.
Screw shitty one-liners, this is how you bully in Minecraft. This whole feeling like losers thing could have actually set up Axel and Olivia to be much more interesting characters than they end up being. In Olivia's opening dialogue, she really lets how others see get to her, even taking it out on poor Ruben, where the whole winning or losing the building competition could really affect her arc in the coming adventure, maybe injecting a bit of extra confidence if you win, and a bit more self-doubt if you lose. When Ruben is set on fire by Aiden and you have to choose what your friends do, they could have made that matter more too, as Olivia resents Ruben for running off and costing the win, or guilt over letting him go for the win. There are a lot of interesting places they could have taken her character, but she doesn't really go anywhere, making this all a waste of time. Axel, on the other hand, doesn't struggle with confidence. He just wants to be free to do what he wants with his life, do cool shit. Where they both have their moment where they step up and make themselves useful and selfless, Axel at least has much more prominence in the story leading up to it, just without much character development until a massive spike at the end, randomly acknowledging his selfishness. It is cool he's the comic relief character, yet mixed in with serious moments, helping out a lot if you go to Boomtown with him in episode 2, and I like that he takes the initiative of distracting the Witherstorm, even if it is a bit unearned. Unlike Olivia, you don't get as much one-on-one time with him because I think the game's aware he has much more presence in the story. They needed to force more one-on-one moments with Olivia because she barely adds anything otherwise, and even then she still adds nothing. Blah blah blah, yapping. But Axel overall still gets on my nerves too much, like falling on Lucas 4 times in 20 minutes and not giving a shit. I don't hate Axel and Olivia, I just feel nothing towards Olivia, and even sometimes Axel. I buy their friendship and bond as a crew of dorks who genuinely enjoy each other's company, but since their growth is so lacking, I probably won't be mentioning them much from here on, and that sucks because there was a lot there to play with. We also meet Petra in this introduction, and her side story is much more interesting than the building competition because it eventually snowballs into the main story, trying to trade a wither skull for 1 diamond. Girl, your ass is getting ripped off, that's a 2% drop rate. Anyway, we get ambushed by a bunch of mobs during the conversation, and I only bring this up because this intro sequence is the funniest thing ever. Jesse not only goes full terrified to full Riz mode, but then this happens and it's so fucking funny. So even though Petra was already getting ripped off, she gets even more ripped off by Ivor, so the crew goes back to get the skull and stumbles into his plan, where the Witherstorm is created with the skull and all goes to shit. Despite trying to warn Gabriel at Endercon, he does not take it seriously, and so we narrowly escape in a pretty cool sequence, where we now have to choose to save either Gabriel or Petra because Lucas freezes up. Whoever you save will join you until episode 4 when they're too sick to help much at all, where the other will then come back after you blow up the Witherstorm in episode 3 and joins you as an amnesiac. Now this is a massive decision for your route because it does change quite a few things, giving you a bit more insight into each character depending on who you pick. It's not done perfectly though, I definitely have my preferred option even though their lines are identical most of the time. I felt much more of a bond with Petra than the guy who refused to do anything about the imminent threat we warned him about despite being a legendary warrior.
Smonster in the Schmasement. Next!
If you save Gabriel, his route consists of various hints that he might not be the legend we thought he was, but out of anyone in the Order, he certainly attempts to cover it up and profit from it the most actively, holding keynotes and reveling in the glory. He's not completely incompetent, he does some decent fighting and is the one who gives Jesse the amulet to track the rest of the Order, which he wouldn't do if he didn't believe in them to some extent, right? I think he wants to believe in himself and them, but when it really comes down to it, it's clear he isn't quite the legend he sells himself as. It's a very grey area when you analyse Gabriel a little more closely. He doesn't seem to want to tell the truth about the Order, but does feel some shame at certain moments about it. On the other hand, if you choose to save Petra, where Gabriel comes back as an amnesiac, he sort of rediscovers himself alongside the player's uncovering of the truth, but not a lot is done with that, sadly. He realizes what he really does have is his friends in the Order and goes off to fight for them, but they make it a joke moment and he runs off with his arms flailing in the wrong direction. He's not an awful person, just not very heroic when push comes to shove. It might be why Ivor targeted Gabriel specifically at the start, actively profiting off of the Order's lies and struggling to let that dream life go. I just wish they didn't make his realization a joke moment, but it's certainly more than the other route where he gets with a sickness and seems content on holding up the lies of the Order the whole time until randomly at the end ceremony. That's why I much prefer saving Petra. His change of heart is more natural. Then that way, although Gabe isn't that bad considering he has a horrific sickness, we see who the real hero is, especially when comparing the two's differences when they're sick. Gabriel hiding it from everyone comes more from wanting to remain a beacon of hope, the legendary hero, thinking the group might fall apart without him. Petra hiding it from the group feels more so we don't waste time worrying about her, and so that she can keep fighting on to help the group earnestly. No matter what, Petra wants to fight on and look out for her friends. When fighting your way through the mob grinder, Jesse needs to choose between retrieving the amulet or helping Axel and Ruben, where there are actually 4 different outcomes, with Petra or Gabriel scolding or praising your choice, but they each praise different things. If you help your friends with Petra, she says she's glad things aren't getting to your head, but Gabe instead warns of sentimentality being dangerous, which I guess is true in the case of Ivor unleashing the Witherstorm, but it paints Gabriel as very bitter, talking of choosing the hero life over his friends and not forgetting the mission, saying heroes have responsibilities. Like what? Holding up the lies of the Order? You're not a martyr for that, dude. Petra continually makes an effort even on the verge of death. There's optional dialogue where you can let her keep fighting on through her sickness with more warrior spirit than Gabe, lacking that option altogether. Even Amnesiac Petra beats Amnesiac Gabriel, where she's the one of the two of them on the front lines with you. She's much more valuable to have by your side the whole time. You might even regret picking Gabriel if you did so just because he's a fabled hero or for the mission's sake, because your friendship and Petra's loyalty are what actually comes through in the end. Petra is definitely one of the best characters in the game. She starts as a level above the naive Jesse, something for him to not necessarily aspire to, but she is more talented as a fighter and has more going for her overall. She might be involved in some dubious business as a mercenary, doing almost anything and working for anyone for a pay at first, but she comes to reflect, even in her darkest hour, that she shouldn't have taken the deal with Ivor and seeks to make it right. She's not a paragon of heroism, doesn't pretend to be someone she's not, but does what it takes when called upon and to right her actions. Where Gabriel forces himself to play the larger-than-life legend of the Order of the Stone, Petra's a much more realistic portrayal of a hero, and healthier for it. And this is not a frivolous comparison. There's a lurking fear throughout the game, not just that the Order aren't exactly all who they're made out to be, but that Jesse's crew could falter in the same ways as they aspire to them so closely. It's a good warning that your heroes are human and flawed like the rest of us. Or maybe they're worse than the rest of us in the case of Minecraft YouTubers, so it's a great lesson to teach kids. But it's also a good moral that you can go against the expected path and make your own, take risks and be adventurous. It might be more fun and fulfilling than expected, a nice theme for Minecraft to have. But that doesn't even mean the Order are awful characters. The explicit reading is, oh, the Order are frauds, but I love that when you look for more depth, there's so much there. They're real people, with Gabriel surprisingly, as I just went over, actually one of the greyest of them when you wouldn't really see that at the surface level. The others are good characters too, but Petra and Gabriel is the deepest comparison the game draws. Where the others are there, but well, Axel and Olivia's counterparts, especially in Magnus and Ellegaard, only really exist in the designs and interests, because while they argue briefly like their counterparts, by the time Magnus and Ellegaard are actually introduced, Axel and Olivia never argue again. Axel's unabashed dorkiness really could have clashed with Olivia's perfectionism, but nope, if I rant about these two for too long, I'll be here forever. So let's head to Magnus and Ellegaard, who make their appearance in episode 2 after we escape through the Nether to an old ruin of the Orders. As a side note quickly, I love that in the Nether they replaced that old horrific texture of the time with their own custom one, so the Nether is actually presentable. They add their own refined details everywhere, like the way mobs move is super fun and adds some real life to the world, especially zombies and their staggering. But it also reminds me that there are some annoying Minecraft inaccuracies, like round mountains in the background, sideways textures, made up textures, And worst of all, outdated mechanics. They would never use minecarts for travel in real Minecraft. It's the worst method of transport by far. Their best use is in a giant magma block donut piglin XP gold farm to entity cram, which my friend got item sorted in once. And likely because of the context given earlier, there are cut off lines and weird visual glitches everywhere.
Oh, Jesse? Is that you?
This one was horrific and so funny. The minecarts are not meant to be floating out like that. By the way, and sorry to interrupt the episode like this, but I've currently got channel memberships up at the moment. And spoilers for my secret video plans, I will be covering the rest of Minecraft Story Mode in later videos, which you can see early if you become a member, so please consider it if you can. Absolutely no pressure, but it helps the channel out a ton. Anyway, episode 2 has you choose to go after Magnus in Boomtown with Axel, or Ellegaard in Redstonia with Olivia. The first time I played, I went with Redstonia, which is kinda cool with the silly redstone contraptions they show off, where you can go on a warpath with Jesse, killing animals and people for no reason. You basically just wander around trying to find a way to break into Ellegaard's lab, which can be frustrating to figure out how to do without just stealing the repeater. You can then work with Ellegaard to try and make a command block, but it's optional for some reason, which skips ahead to the Witherstorm tearing up the place. It feels like a huge waste of time, and is a pretty underwhelming island for a place called Redstonia, and especially compared to Boomtown, which on the other hand has quite a few fun action sequences. You avoid griefers, convince Magnus to come with you, he acts like a dick, and you try to stage a fight to help him escape as the wanted king of Boomtown. He goes crazy on a griefer rush trying to kill you completely unapologetically, and so you have to actually beat him. It's all some decent fun, but not a lot in this episode is plot relevant. The order member you didn't choose to seek out of the two will be recruited by their counterpart, either Axel or Olivia instead, who tell you only Soren can defeat this thing with a Formidabomb, or the F-bomb.
I've heard all about the F-bomb before.
F-bomb.
Magnus and Ellegaard are two characters that basically only exist in relation to each other, as they fight constantly and are pretty immature or stuck up respectively.
I'm not going anywhere with either.
Again, not what you'd expect out of the Legendary Order. They don't serve much narrative purpose other than subverting your generic hero expectations of them, at least until they're called out for their lack of cohesion in episode 3, and they each insist you take their armor to blow up the Witherstorm. Whoever you choose goes armorless for the fight and gets fucking whipped into a tree, dying tragically, where the other lives to regret how they acted the whole time. I definitely didn't kill Ellegaard at first, then rewind it to kill Magnus instead. Who would do that? That's horrible. It's at this point afterwards that the regret and character development was refreshing and quite well done, where they make a continued effort after this to help in the fight. Not as much as our main cast, who are actually coordinated enough to work off each other and execute a successful plan. They just kinda go off on their own and make up for the mistakes of their past, but it's the best effort of any Order member, honestly. They even make comments after the other one dies about how they might have really been the only one capable without the command block, which is sweet and might be true considering they each run their own towns. They represent the best of the Order in their arcs, I believe, paying a costly price for their constant pettiness and actually reflecting and learning from it. Even as the Order falls apart, Amnesiac Gabriel running around, Soren fleeing as his plans collapse around him, we'll get to him later, Ivor just trying to look out for his old friends, Magnus or Ellegaard fend for themselves and do what they can. They really do a lot with the different characters of the Order and how they react and respond to the fallout. Speaking of, we come across Ivor in Soren's fortress and have a sick fight scene with Jesse and Petra. Here I have to mention the unique fighting styles they showcase based on all of Minecraft's ways of dealing damage, with Ivor the alchemist with his potions zooming around at top speed, going invisible and throwing harming potions at you. Magnus fights with TNT, Ellegaard with redstone contraptions, Axel with his fists. They just get really creative with it all and continue to do so throughout even the DLC episodes that we aren't covering yet. Continuing the comparisons to the Order, with possibly the weakest parallel to them, we have our builder rival Lucas, leader of the Ocelots, technically closest to Ivor as a warning against conflict within the group. It's very surface level here, you're basically supposed to feel some tension with Lucas that could ruin the group, but most people end up feeling a very different kind of tension instead. That rivalry is technically dynamic within the game, because if you piss off Lucas enough, refusing to resolve any conflict gracefully, he will abandon you in the final fight and storm off at the ceremony. While a cool option, the problem is that Lucas is such a chill fucking dude. He might have dickhead friends and the bullies from the start, but the wrongs the game tries to tell you he does, you really can't blame him for much. Although he's the reason you have to make the choice between Gabriel and Petra because he freezes up after everyone else makes it through the escape portal, he's just some guy, a builder. Fight, flight, or freeze happens to everyone. There's a good chance you'd freeze up too if this shit was on you. Despite missing those tiny puzzle pieces that could give some needed animosity towards Lucas, he's still a really enjoyable character, starting off as a rival who isn't really so bad after Petra encourages you to get to know him. She says he can really come through, which he does when helping you get Petra's Wither Skull back. I like that unique dynamic. People you held unfair grudges towards may actually be decent people if you give them a chance. But there are two parts later in the game where it asks you to balance some tension with Lucas. It seems to consistently think you'd have an issue with him multiple times, but I just don't that much. Sure, there are tiny moments when he defends his shite friends, but I'm not going to kick him out of our only shelter in the middle of nowhere at night for that. So the first instance is during a fight in that shelter where Axel just acts like a complete asshole.
Take it easy, Axel.
You called me stupid.
No, I didn't.
But you wanted to.
No, I didn't.
Huh? Did you say something?
Bro is delusional! As Lucas tries to calmly formulate a plan for the morning, Axel makes him want to leave by insulting him, telling him he's not the boss of us. Most normal people tell Lucas to stay the night instead of letting him leave, and we move on. It feels like a missed opportunity, especially considering you're supposed to feel some lingering tension later, as I'll get to soon. When he said he has the Ocelot jacket because he knows how to build, they could have added, "unlike you losers," or something like that. Really get on the nerves of the group, getting carried away in the heat of the moment, cutting deeper considering the game's introduction and the whole feeling like losers thing, just as you're warming up to him. Then letting him leave feels like a valid option, and this way we could have that great scene where he gives his apology speech to you in both choice paths, rather than just when he leaves. It would even continue the theme of doing things differently than the order, avoiding tensions over small differences. As a side note, you could even sow that conflict I was talking about with Axel and Olivia. There's a small second where Olivia defends Lucas if you let him leave, so spread some tension between the two into the second episode. And now back into episode 3, as we venture into the end looking for Soren, the fights start up again for no reason. Lucas randomly tries to snatch the amulet from us to have a look at it, but the game expects us to be overly possessive of it with overly confrontational dialogue, to which I said nothing and made no effort to keep it. Just let him look at it, man. Anyway, the game starts at shit again as Lucas next wants to lead the group past the Enderman to make up for his freezing earlier, and you can choose to let him or not. I don't know why it's even a choice though. The game expects you to think he's incompetent or hold a grudge, and if you ever did, there have been countless times he's apologized and made up for it too. I think he otherwise has a nice arc of working with an unexpected rival and making a friend out of him, where Lucas deals with his own self-doubt and feelings of incompetence after the freezing incident, wanting to do better for his new friends and feel useful. It even leads to his concern over Petra, as he can see she's hiding something, to whom he's especially concerned about as her friend, someone he could have helped but didn't. And I guess it works with Gabriel too, with that shame of freezing and letting down a hero, but it's not nearly as personal. Once again, my Petra root propaganda. In this scene, you can further the bond with Lucas and resolve the tension by filling him in on Petra's wither sickness, which is a really nice moment, not taking some egotistical leader role with special knowledge. The group should know, and Lucas is a part of that group now. Oddly, Lucas is kinda similar to Soren as well, the fraudulent leader of the Order. The comparisons don't necessarily have to line up perfectly with counterpart Order members, because there is an interesting parallel to draw here. Like Soren, Lucas feels guilty about letting down his friends with his cowardice. However, with Soren, it all goes quite south of redeeming himself. So we first meet Soren in his giant Enderman research lab, who doesn't quite match the expectations you might have first had, even after seeing the others weren't quite legendary so far either. And that's because in Soren's case, he's very eccentric. He's sort of lost his shit a bit, isolating himself from people and researching the Enderman as he's trying to teach them to build, trying to control simpler creatures than the friends he thought he was helping with the command block, giving them status as heroes, as he thought they wanted. Soren seems to not quite understand why there was so much fallout over the issue, why the Order split up over this. He'd secretly used the command block to help more and more across their adventures, until they unknowingly came to rely on it. I imagine when told your accomplishments weren't actually your own, it doesn't quite feel so good, especially as it communicates your own leader doesn't believe in you. He thought he was being a good leader, technically fostering their strengths and helping them be the versions of themselves they wanted to be. I guess practically, logically, he sort of was helping them, but emotionally he did far more damage than he realized. And he's evidently upset at the split through little slips of dialogue, starting to descend further into madness through dissociation. It's safe to say that this is not Jesse's envisioned leader he was aspiring to, but he's a great showcase that people are human under distorted legends, wonderfully complex ones even. I just think he's a great character for that complexity, but because of his grand deception, people ignore his unique depth amidst the Order. Unlike Gabriel, he's really ashamed of what he did now, not just because he broke apart the Order, not just because the deceitful legacy is all that was left of it all, but because it was also just the wrong thing to do. But he only did it all because he thought he was helping his friends. Unlike Gabriel, Magnus, and Ellegaard, he has a consistent insecurity, a need to be in control, an expectation to live up to, maybe partly self-imposed. But he doesn't know how to tell everyone he isn't as impossibly smart and perfect as everyone expects, and so he can't shove the fear that they aren't strong enough. He's not just a fraud, the guy behind the whole big scheme trying to cover it up like you might think at the surface level. He wanted to help his friends in a misguided, insecure way, and I think he deserves far more recognition for that consistent depth, especially when ultimately, and sadly, that insecurity and need for control takes him over at the end, when plan after plan starts going awry and he runs away. Soren is just such an enjoyably eccentric weirdo, obsessed with logic and order and making sense of things, playing off Ivor extremely well, sadly the one hurt most by his actions. As we've seen slowly, Ivor has clashed especially with Gabriel and Soren throughout the story, and once again, there's clearly more there than at first glance. Ivor was written out of the Order's history and only went along peacefully with the Grand Deception in return for all their treasures. With the structure he builds in the Firelands in his super secret lab, it's clear he cares a great deal about their time together, displaying all their treasures so proudly. He's so much more driven by emotion, and that nature conflicts with Soren's structured approach in every argument they have. I love how that's depicted with Soren living in a place definitively called the End in a lab, where Ivor lives in the chaotic, nonsensical Farlands. Ivor, despite keeping his word in exchange for his silence for treasures, he'd use them to conjure a plan to expose the truth with first the Witherstorm and then again with the unbroken End crystals to reveal the truth to Jesse without technically saying anything. But he also could have taken them out of fondness, the real tangible pieces left of the Order's adventures. It makes me wonder though, why the Witherstorm? Why did the creators choose a Witherstorm to represent Ivor and invert it to create rather than destroy? It's almost like it's pulling in everything they'd built and corrupting it, like the pent-up despair, sullying the fond memories the Order had. Nothing built can last forever, but in this case, the shaky foundation it was built upon corrupts that built-up legend. This is what the Order really represents, at least to Ivor, revealing the true ugly nature of it all, fostering underneath. Not a force of destruction, a power of creation, taking what was built and corrupting it, just as the Order and everything about them threatens to be tarnished forever. The longer it's neglected, the longer the truth is neglected, the farther reaching this darkness spreads, the more it consumes. It even has the command block at its center, the symbol of Soren's betrayal guiding it, fueling its rage. Or as I said earlier, it's just a giant terrifying monster they thought was cool. Back on the Witherstorm, they defeat it using Soren's F-bomb, but it all goes to shit again quickly with it reawakening into 3 new Witherstorms, growing faster than ever. Ivor relents and sees that maybe this new crew might actually have a shot, and so helps him with his own plan to take it down for good, slashing it with a special enchantment to destroy the command block, along with some cool new armor. As we approach the battlefield and reunite with Axel after having just discovered the Order of Frauds, it all falls apart as we've seen throughout the video. We try and get Soren's Enderman to attack the Witherstorm as they take blocks to hurt it and make it vulnerable, but they don't really do much. With Amnesiac Gabriel running off, Ivor running after him, Magnus or Ellegaard trying their best on their own, it's just so uncoordinated that Soren can't handle it and flees. If you don't have Amnesiac Gabriel, Ivor goes after Soren and you're left with Axel and Olivia, with Lucas and a determinant Amnesiac Petra. Jesse and crew work together to bait the Witherstorm into even more Endermen, risking their lives where they eventually get an opening they need to find a way up to. All pulling their materials together, they build something to get up there, where Ruben jumps in at the last second. Jesse battles the Witherstorm trying to protect its command block from the inside, spinning and beaming all around until Jesse gets caught, so Ruben has to rush the weapon back to Jesse. As he does so, Ruben's caught by a tentacle and thrown out of the Wither, so fueled with rage, Jesse destroys the block, falling into the safety of the water. But Ruben doesn't make it, landing on stone instead. Ruben doesn't get enough respect to his name. Yeah, I said it, I don't care. He's got this reputation for being the cute animal character that does nothing except die for dramatic effect at the end. And his actually really sad death scene is ruined by this. He not only Minecraft poofs, but poofs into a fucking pork chop. That is the name of the item he turns into. Magnus and Ellegaard don't poof when they die. Why'd they do Ruben so fucking dirty like this? Our snow golem Philip had a more dignified death than this. His death wasn't satisfying to those that loved him, and it gave the game a stupid meme reputation for that moment. It certainly wasn't worth not having him around in future episodes. Eric Sturp, a writer for some of the Witherstorm episodes and future lead writer of the series, also thought this was a horrible idea and wanted to bring him back. Even still, I love Ruben. Choosing a pig for Jesse's little animal buddy is so perfect to Minecraft. Pigs were first before dogs and aren't nearly as generic, but Ruben got the short end of it constantly, yet I contend he had a better arc than half the cast. He was disrespected from frame 1 by Olivia, saying, "Oh, we're gonna lose with Ruben here, he's so embarrassing." The little guy could never go 2 seconds without being overlooked, without being nearly burned to death, all while constantly making an effort. So many times standing by Jesse's side. And he even, when it counted most, was a more capable hero than anyone else, wanting to be by his best bud's side until the end, not letting him do it alone, where Jesse would have failed if Ruben didn't help him. This scene with the two of them in episode 4 was so nice as well, with Jesse telling Ruben that the world needs us, everything else is falling apart. I think it's what inspired Ruben to do what needed to be done, that their bond could get them through. And he gets such a well done death scene apart from, well, you know, with really tear-jerking dialogue choices.
It's okay, boy. I'm here. I'm here.
It's honestly beautiful. It's got beautiful music with that iconic Minecraft piano in such heavy, slow notes, and he sounds so hurt. It's genuinely emotional. Fuck all you Ruben haters. He doesn't just die for dramatic effect. He died because freedom has a cost. True heroism has a cost. It isn't just all glory, and Ruben laid down his life for a world that treated him like a joke, with the glory only after it's too late. I'm only half making jokes here as well. I love Ruben. He's gonna sit here on my shelf forever as oddly the second D. Bradley Baker voiced animal that gets the honor. I hate Overwatch, but Wrecking Ball is my goat. And only you guys watching this will know why in future videos he's here. Why is he looking at me like that? So what better time to talk about Jesse, the main character, and now the leader of the new Order of the Stone. There isn't much to say because he does just kind of act however you make him act. He goes on whatever journey you playing him really want him to go on. But he has his moments of freedom from the player, worry for his friends, aspiration to do more and be more, determination to step up when everyone else seems to be struggling, and frustration with the Order's lies after having looked up to them, especially Soren. He obviously embodies the theme of making your own path and being a hero your way the most, as the character you can actually do that with. Yes, it's somewhat surface level again and not as relevant to the character's nuances, but Jesse's comparison to the Order comes obviously with the expectations of a leader. Soren was built up as a legend. Even in his own story, he has this glorified tale where he rides the fucking Ender Dragon to destroy all the crystals. But Jesse, like the others, doesn't follow that lofty expectation. He instead realizes he has to step up, along with Ruben of course, when others won't. Being able to form plans and execute them with teamwork, managing group tensions whilst hearing everybody out, caring about them all, but also being able to adapt when it all goes wrong, when it all goes to shit. Not just through his individual determination, but in his ability to hold this group together so he can rely on them when he can't do it all alone. Because of everything they'd gone through, all the tough decisions made, all the tough conversations had, Jesse can trust himself and his friends to lift each other back up when one falters. Even in the final battle to first get up there, Jesse wasn't alone, and without Ruben, his ever-loyal pig you've taken care of this whole time, Jesse couldn't do it. If it wasn't for the both of them inside that Witherstorm, they would have lost. Ruben my goat once again. If it wasn't for Jesse keeping everyone together though, they would have lost. Jesse was the one who reunited and brought the Order together too. Even though they were just as, if not more dysfunctional than his close friends, it's because of Jesse that they were forced to confront their issues and grow. Overall, Minecraft Story Mode certainly isn't perfect. There's some really goofy writing at points, weird inconsistencies with the actual Minecraft game, glitchy lines and scenes, some really boring gameplay sections honestly with, oh yeah, the combat, never really mentioned that. Yeah, it's just spamming sword attacks against zombies, not in depth in any regard. And there's absolutely some missed potential in the characters, but as I hope I've illustrated today, there's a lot to dive into and love as well. The overarching theme of unrealistic ideals in what at first seems like a larger-than-life setting showcases the dangers of trying to live up to that expectation. It explores the process of breaking them down and learning from them, and then making an effort in the end, regardless of the cruel reality of being a hero, seeing that it's all way too unhealthily romanticized. Real heroes come from dealing with your own personal struggles and character flaws, yet nonetheless making the choice to persist and make an effort anyway. It's a nice theme for Minecraft, oddly enough. We're in a game where you can do anything and be anything you want, A story mode that teaches you how you can bring some of that into reality is quite valuable. There's so much value in this game. It's not high art, but the characters, memories, choices, story, art, scenarios, all of it is worth preserving. People make memories with the characters, and the music is awesome too, capturing Minecraft's own style while molding it into more specific somber moods or big action sequences. Aside from a lot of weird flaws that shape the game into what it is, it made a lot of kids' childhoods. It helped shape a lot of my writing style and creative inspiration. Seeing what was possible in this game made me want to be more creative in it myself, or even outside the game. I had never as a kid dealt with some of these themes, and I was shocked at how the story could be pretty personalized when it did work well. A lot of people put their hard work in to make it what it is, despite a lot working against them. I think it's a pretty cool thing that exists, and deserves to be preserved. But it isn't. Telltale would continue operating as they did for a while after the release of Minecraft Story Mode, losing more and more money with each game, crunching everyone to all hell, until Kevin Bruner stepped down as CEO and things course corrected for a short while. The Telltale tool was given an actual physics engine, higher quality games started to be prioritized, but it was already a sinking ship. In October 2018, Telltale Games announced to its employees that within 9 days, the company would be gone. Bankrupt because of shitty CEO choices and management. They even had a chance to revisit this Witherstorm arc as the game was getting ported to Netflix, with plans to change at the very least Ruben's tasteless death to make him live. How I would have loved that. But once again, that's not the reality we live in. The game was still ported to Netflix, but instead on a skeleton crew with basically no changes other than some lighting. We don't live in a reality where the story got to be improved or reworked. We instead saw the game pulled from shelves as the license can't be renewed. The rights of the game returned to Mojang, who just haven't re-released the game. Even just softly, I'd love to see the game accessible again, preserved on the Minecraft launcher, intriguing some brand new little kid, and them having an unexpectedly great time with it. But that can't happen anymore. Instead, the game is remembered in a horrible way, if at all. YouTubers laughing at it, farming it for laughs whilst ignoring its positives. No one can see for themselves what it's really like, not without sailing the 7 seas at least. And that's why game preservation remains one of the greatest challenges facing the gaming industry right now. Microsoft would rather focus on developing AI integration into the game development process, removing the human touch to pump out piles and piles of generative AI slop content with no soul or purpose. This game may have been flawed, but there was purpose and love behind it. It was human. It was art. So I hope I've presented why I think this game is worth defending, why I hoped I could change the narrative, even just a little bit, why I believe this game is worth preserving, warts and all. And the worst part? This is the spot where the tale of Minecraft Story Mode often ends. But that's not even the half of it.